for another afternoon tea with docs. I'm Dr. Linda, emergency medicine physician from Sheffield, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Dr. Erica, a GP from the West Midlands, and we are both lifestyle medicine physicians. Now, if you're new to us, do say hello on the chat, or if you're joining us on YouTube, do leave us a comment. We can see it and we can chat with you live. Every Sunday at 5 p.m., we bring you world-renowned health expert like our guest today, Charlie Rowe. And our mission is to bust medical misinformation and share practical, evidence-based lifestyle advice that you can implement right away to help you prevent, treat, and reverse chronic diseases in a supportive community setting. After the interview, if you joined us here on Zoom, you will be able to speak to us and our guest experts off camera to ask your burning questions. You can join us on social, on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn by searching for the handle Afternoon Tea with Docs. Well, every event and the community here is accessible free of charge and always will be, to make sure that health is freely available to all. If you would like to support us, you can buy us a cup of tea or become a monthly supporter by visiting the link in the text below.
Today, we are speaking to Charlie Rowe, who joined Physicians Fitness in Columbus, Ohio in 2007 after working as a senior personal trainer at Oak Hill CC in Rochester, New York. Charlie's background in personal training helped him build relationships with fitness centers, personal trainers, and group exercise instructors in the Columbus community. He also worked within an outpatient physical therapy clinic, coordinating the care and the exercise process with the physical therapists. Charlie is a certified personal trainer with the Cooper Clinic, an exercise physiologist with the American College of Sports Medicine, a certified strength and conditioning specialist with the National Strength and Conditioning Association. He is also an American Council of Exercise orthopedic exercise specialist and is a certified muscle system specialist from Exercise Professional Education. Charlie's passion.
Sorry, go ahead. We haven't gotten to the passion yet. So
I know. Charlie's passion is to spread the gospel of exercise and wants to encourage people to rethink exercise. Don't take your health for granted and don't take your muscles for granted. Welcome, Charlie.
Welcome, Charlie.
Thank you both.
Thank you very much for joining us. Your story is really inspiring and very much all about what we are here in Afternoon Tea. So we would love to hear, how did you get into exercise in the first place?
Yeah, so well, before I start that, I was mentioning to both of you earlier, and I wanna do that formally here, is give you both props for doing something like this. I feel like you're going above and beyond your profession to do something like this. As I was telling Linda and Erica earlier, here in Columbus, Ohio, I try and connect with physicians all the time to try and help coordinate their care. And I'll try and seek them out on LinkedIn to try and connect with them. And oftentimes, they don't have a LinkedIn profile, or if they do, it's like it's just set up and that's it. And so I think what you guys are doing is super cool, and yeah, I wish all the best success to keep this going, and I hope it just grows for you guys. But my personal story, as Erica said, I'm a certified personal trainer. I'm a certified strength and conditioning specialist, certified orthopedic exercise specialist, certified muscle system specialist. What all those things add up to is I work directly with the muscular system, using this thing called exercise to help people out with muscle aches and joint pain. How many of you have muscle aches or joint pain, or maybe you've had them in the past? You don't have to raise your hand if you don't want to, or you don't have to put anything in the chat if you don't want to. But if you have them, you know that it can affect the quality of your life. And so my story starts, I work here, as Erica said, I work here at Physicians Fitness, and we work with folks that are frustrated by muscular aches and joint pain. And so oftentimes these folks are coming to us they're coming to us, they're discouraged because things they've tried in the past have worked with little or no success. Now, it's not to say that those things are bad. It's not a put down about those things. But for their unique situation, it didn't provide them the relief that they were looking for. And so they're frustrated by their muscle aches and joint pain. And they're also concerned that they might not ever get back the quality of life that they once had, or that they're seeking to get back. And so I guess before I go a little bit more into my story, I thought, Erica and Linda, I'd ask you directly, like, what do you each think of? Is there like an image that comes to mind, a phrase that comes to mind, a saying? What do you think of when I say the word exercise? What comes to mind?
Exercise, I guess the first thing that comes to mind is hard work.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Like, what's your gut, like, reflexive response to that? Right, and I'll share with you mine. But Linda, what do you think of?
I think after so many years of pushing exercise to be something for how we look instead of for our own well-being and how we feel, it has been transitioned to be something very negative. I feel a negative association with it, that it's not empowering, it's more intimidating and disempowering in some way.
Yeah, I asked that question because, and I'll tell you where mine goes to. So here in the United States, right, sports are very popular, and we're in the football playoffs, right? And I'm a big fan of the Buffalo Bills. They had a big game last night. I'm still excited about that win. Well, being a big fan, early this morning, I'm on YouTube and I want to hear what the coaches have to say. And the head coach of the Bills is talking, and he says, I got to give credit to all these people. And he says, our strength and conditioning staff. And right away, what pops up in my head is, these guys lifting weights, right? And pumping iron. And I'm not going to say that that's bad, but I happen to agree with you, Linda. I think, unfortunately, there is a little bit of a negative association with that word, right? And I saw some of the things in the chat: strenuous activity, sweating, hard work, right? I also think of, there's 3 different stereotypes that people think of when they think of exercise. The first one is weight loss or aesthetics. It's something that we do to look good on the outside, right? By the way, here, at least here in the United States, still to this day, the number one reason why someone hires a personal trainer is for weight loss. Second thing, as I just mentioned it earlier, right? As I was talking about the Bills, right? Exercise is something that you do for sports performance. So I don't know if any of you on this call have kids, but I work with a lot of parents who spend a lot, and I mean a lot of money, taking their kids to different gyms, boutique type places where they're working with these different exercise professionals, doing this thing called exercise, all with the intention of making them a better athlete. And then the last one is, well, exercise is something that you do for rehabilitation. So I got this injury, I've had this surgery, I'm going to exercise, but once I feel better, or once I get cleared from PT, right, physical therapy, they give me the go-ahead, I'm done. I'm no longer going to pursue active exercise. My own personal story starts back when I was in the 7th grade. I was always into sports. I was into athletics. I always idolized people that were like either really muscular or they were really athletic. And so in the 7th grade, I'm going into gym class, and we've gotten to the section in gym class where we're going to do the weightlifting section. And our gym coach has set up these different stations. And he's telling us he wants us to go from station to station, and he wants us to do these different exercises. So I'm all excited to do this. And we get started, and all of a sudden, like I'm struggling. And my friend looks over at me and he states the obvious. He's like, Charlie, you got to work on getting stronger. You got to work on your upper body strength. And I was bumming because I don't know about you guys, but when my weaknesses are exposed, I'm embarrassed. I don't like it. And I want to do anything I can to change that. And I was also upset, not at him, but upset at the situation that, man, I was a decent athlete. I worked hard when I played sports, and I'm struggling. And my buddy here, who wasn't very athletic, he wasn't. So I go home and I tell my dad about this, and he takes me down into our basement and he shows me that we got some dumbbells and some barbells, and they're there from when he was a kid, and I start using these things. I'm also going to get ready to try out for track, my first season run track. So I start running around my neighborhood, and I notice, like in a short time, no joke, I start to develop some muscles, and they're kind of cool. And I'm noticing that running, I'm getting stronger. And I'm noticing that I play soccer, which I think you guys call football. I'll call it soccer if that's all right. I'm playing soccer, and I'm noticing a difference. I'm better conditioned. I'm winning slide tackles. I'm coming up with the ball. Like, this is awesome. So exercise becomes this new habit for me. I go off to college, and whether I was working out at the gym that was on campus or off campus, when I lived off campus my junior and senior year, people are coming up to me and they're asking me questions about exercise. And sometimes these are folks I had never met before. And I'm flattered, and I'm thinking to myself, could I make a living doing this? I went to school for business. Well, I graduate. I have an uncle that says, hey, go after your passion. You've always been passionate about this. Go after it. Now's the time to do it, right? If it doesn't work out, you got time to recover, right? And get another career. So I go for it. I get a job. Like Erica said, I start my career at Oak Hill Country Club. I don't know if any of you play golf or follow golf, but Oak Hill is pretty world renowned. We've hosted some of the bigger tournaments in the past. We hosted the Ryder Cup and the PGA Championship. They have a fitness center there. I start working there. I have a great boss who's mentoring me. And as I'm working with clients and helping them out, they're starting to share similar things with me. They're sharing that they feel better in their clothes. They're sharing with me that they can walk the golf course easier. They're sharing with me that they can hit the golf ball further. I'm like, this is awesome. But I had this major frustration. And that frustration was that folks were coming in with pre-existing muscle aches or joint pain. And oftentimes exercise would help them, but in most cases, they did not, at least what I was doing with them. And in a lot of cases, it made them worse to the point where they got discouraged and they quit. And I was bummed about that because I'm like, man, there's so much research on the benefits of exercise. Everyone should be doing it. But let's face it, if you don't feel good and you do something that makes you feel worse, you're not going to want to continue to do it. And I experienced it personally because all of a sudden I started to develop muscle aches and joint pain. And I'm like, man, I'm no longer looking forward to doing this thing called exercise. Well, long story short, out of that frustration, I ended up moving here to Columbus, Ohio, where I work here at Physicians Fitness, and got another great mentor who's showing me some techniques, some pseudo therapy type techniques, if you will, that we would use in conjunction with exercise. I started noticing, wow, by doing this, I can help solve more problems. I'm having them done to me, and I'm feeling better, the best I've felt in years. Well, about 4 or 5 years ago, we had this huge breakthrough. And then what we realized was that the better that we got at getting the client involved early in on the process. Now, my hands might still be on them. I still might be working with them, but they're doing the work. They're contracting their muscles in different ways. The sooner we got doing that, and then we empowered them, meaning showing them things to do outside of the office, whether it be at home or at their gym, we saw people got better, quicker, faster, and we started to solve some really cool problems. This past year, in 2021, there's 3 cases that stand out to me. There are 3 people that came to me. They were all told that surgery might be their last and final option to relieve their pain. They were all under the age of 40, a 24-year-old, a 33-year-old, a 39-year-old. 24 and 39-year-old came to me with neck pain. The 33-year-old came to me with back pain. He was scheduled for back surgery. I met him on April 23rd of this year. He was scheduled for surgery on May 12th. In all 3 of those scenarios, we avoided surgery and they are pain-free. Now, guys, I tell you this, not to impress you. I want to make that perfectly clear. Not to impress you, but I want to impress upon you how powerful this thing called exercise can be as far as improving the quality of your life and resolving muscle aches, joint pain, and helping with movement. Because really a key to quality of life, how well somebody moves, right? And so going back to my question, right, of how do you think about exercise, what comes to mind? All I'm asking you to do, what I want to do in the beginning here, my opening rant, if you will, I know I've been yapping for a while here, is I just want to get you to rethink exercise. All the things you said there in the chat, all the things you mentioned, where my head goes, I don't think those are necessarily bad things. All I'm asking you to do is let's look beyond that. I don't know if you have any questions or anything to talk about off of that, but that's how I wanted to, I guess, start the conversation, and that's my story.
Charlie, that's a super powerful story, and I would love to back your lower back surgery story with clinical experience. And what we are seeing, unfortunately, in the emergency department, every single day, people are coming in with lower back pain. And Erica just looks it up. 60% of people in the UK will experience lower back pain. It peaks at age 40 to 50, depends on which part of the country you're in. And 1 in 4 people over the age of 80 report lower back pain. In young adults, 3 to 4% of young adults are suffering regularly from chronic disability associated with a problem that we could solve with physical activity and a little bit of attention. What we see in A&E is, in the emergency department, is regular attendances and re-attendances of patients who are coming in with excruciating back pain, which costs us globally millions, if not billions. Very often, the first almost aggressive demand from patients is, I want my MRI scan. I want my scan. Yes. Then with the idea of having an operation. Unfortunately, in the litigation style of medicine, we do roll with it, and we advise them to have the MRI scan, reassess that, give them medications. But the truth is that neither the MRI scan, neither the painkillers are going to solve the problem. And definitely,
right? Like a mask.
Band-Aid, right? Yes. So we have to have the honest conversations with our patients to empower them with the knowledge that it's the weakening of the muscles in the lower back that's causing this problem. Unfortunately, larger body mass index that is crushing on our discs and on our skeletons, plus the lack of muscle mass that we have with our office jobs, with our lack of movement that we experience every day in the Western world, particularly, is what's fueling this a huge global lower back pain issue. So I love that you have told the story how you have stopped surgeries, and the truth is that that's the only way to stop it. And even if they do have a surgery, then they need to exercise even more to strengthen that area of the lower back. So, because now we have removed structures, crucial structures that were there to support the body and the mass.
Well,
So now we have to exercise even more. So
right.
why not start the activity beforehand?
And that, I don't know from your guys' experience, but from mine, as far as what I've come across in the literature, and then just meeting with everyday people, right, clients that have had a back surgery, it's not great. Meaning, like usually a year from now, from that surgery, the pains come back. And sometimes it can come back even worse and more of a vengeance. And I think what we need to get across to folks that choose to go that option is, well, that is an injury in itself, right? That's a trauma in itself. And so I often have to tell them, first, we got to figure out, okay, what's happened as a result of the surgery. And now let's see if we can work through, why did the surgery have to occur in the first place? And I think the other thing, like you said, Linda, is, that the whole thing with the MRIs, I think it's nice to have to potentially know, okay, you have this going on in your spine, and this might be how we interact and exercise your spine. But it doesn't mean that because you have a spine that might be messed up, right, that is the cause of pain. Because I think you've probably come across it too, right? They've done several research studies now where they've taken 60 and 70 somethings and they've done MRIs or x-rays, and they asked them, do you have pain or not? And they saw, oh, wait a minute, this spine looks like a mess. It looks like a train wreck, but that person doesn't have any pain. This spine looks pretty healthy for a 60 or 70 something, but this person has debilitating pain. So that here, at least in the States, they're starting to realize, wait a minute, we are putting way too much stock in the imaging.
Way too much stock, and it's not solving the problem. If, as you said, we use it as a tool to guide the conversation, it's fantastic. But very often we have a report and that's it. The conversation stops there. And we are not reassuring, we are not empowering our patients to take on the actual medicine that they need, which is physical activity and safe strengthening of our whole body. And I think this is just one example which we all, I think, could relate to, that we all experience from lack of movement, lower back pain. But there's so much more to it. So let's jump into it. Erica, I'll hand it over back to you.
Thank you, Linda. I just wanted to also share my own little story of using exercise for managing my own pain. So from a very young age, I've suffered with knee pain, and I was diagnosed with osteoarthritis. And so my GP sent me for a biomechanical assessment, and I was told that I had very extremely weak glutes. So I was like, okay, what can I do? So I started going to using the cross trainer or strider, using resistance on that to help me build my muscles. And I started to go to Pilates and doing yoga to help strengthen my muscles. And because as a junior doctor, you go on these ward rounds and you stand for so many hours, and I have bad posture, and that coupled with my knee arthritis just made my knee pain really bad. And I noticed that as I was doing more of the cross trainer regularly and doing Pilates work, my knee pain got so much better, and I wasn't having to constantly shift and think about my knee pain when I was on my ward rounds. So that's my own little story of how resistance training, muscle training has really helped me with my pain. And I guess when we talk about muscle strengthening, perhaps a very common image that comes to mind is somebody lifting heavy weights in the gym, which the idea of that might be quite threatening to some people, myself included, I would say. But there's so much more to strength training, and there is so much more you can do beyond lifting heavy weights in the gym. So, and before we go further, I just wanted to ask if you could maybe clarify some terminology for us, Charlie, so that we can actually understand our muscles better. So what's the difference between muscle power, muscle strength, muscle endurance? Could you?
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say that, usually when you're discussing those things and you're trying to work on those things, right, it's usually the amount of repetitions, right? So I'll just try and keep it real simple, right? So usually in the strength and power department, you're talking about heavier resistance, fewer repetitions, right? Endurance, lighter resistance, more repetitions. Going back to what we were discussing with back pain, there's one researcher that was saying that in regards to that, what he's been researching is that actually endurance is a better way of helping with the symptoms of back pain than actual strength.
Okay. So muscle endurance is important.
Yeah, I think yes. And as far as like in regards to resistance training, I think it is, important to train a little bit of those things, right? Meaning I don't always want to be training for strength and hypertrophy, like meaning I'm, working with really heavy weights. I don't always want to be, doing a max, right? Unfortunately, a lot of young athletes fall into that trap where they start lifting really, and they want to know what their 1 rep max is, and they keep checking in on that. But that's a little bit more stress on the joints and the tissues, right? So you need some time to recover. So yeah, that's a whole thing about periodization that's important. Is there's a time to do some work on endurance, there's a time to work on strength, and then there's also a time, I think one thing that we should talk about is there's a time for rest too, right? We don't want to overtrain. There's nothing wrong with taking a week off, like going on a vacation and not worrying about exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. Rest is important for recovery so that you can continue to train. And you talked about those 3 types of people who utilize exercise earlier. And we were chatting before we came on live that perhaps Linda was saying earlier about the negative image that exercise has. And yeah, very often we associate it with weight loss, good looks, and rehabilitation or exercise performance. But perhaps we don't think so much about how it improves our functional ability on a day-to-day basis, especially when we think about the perhaps older population. So in the UK, over the age of 65, 1 in 3 people will have a fall at least once a year. And over the age of 80, that number goes up to 1 in 2 people. And we know that falls, so people fall over, that's associated with weak, muscle mass loss, so that they're functionally less able. They then fall over. That becomes a vicious cycle because then they lose more muscle mass due to perhaps not being able to move around so much. There's loss of independence, loss of confidence, and increased risk of infections and things like that. So I wondered if you can maybe speak to muscle mass loss, which we know starts from about the age of 30. We start losing our muscle mass. And how can we, is there any way we can maybe slow down or reduce the muscle mass loss?
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, the research shows, right, it's pretty clear that somewhere in our after the age of 30, somewhere each passing year, we'll start to lose strength. And so I always say, if someone's above 30, like if you're not working on trying to get stronger or maintain what you have, you're going to get weaker. But the research is pretty clear that at any age, I've worked with folks in their 80s, right? And they do get stronger with regular, consistent exercise. It's just going back to, what we were talking about with the, like you were saying, right? The kind of like the 3 stereotypes, which I guess can have like a negative spin on things, right? Or it can keep someone from exercising, I guess is what I'm saying, right? It keeps them from pursuing regular exercise. My goal is I want to try and switch that yes, this thing can be used. It really should be no different than brushing our teeth or flossing. It really should be no different. And you don't have to, like we were talking about earlier before we went on, right? You don't have to do it to look sexier or anything like that. You don't have to be a bodybuilder. You don't have to train like a bodybuilder. And I think, unfortunately, I know I was guilty of this early on in my career. I felt like with some clients, I had to train them really hard because that's what they wanted. And that's not really what they wanted. They just wanted to be healthy. They wanted to move better. They wanted to be able to play golf, play better golf. If we could help them do that.
Yeah, and we've got an avid golfer in amongst our audience.
Right on.
She can share a bit with us later.
Awesome.
Yeah, so and are there things that might speed up muscle mass loss? So we want to be regularly training to maintain our muscle mass, and things that might speed up or accelerate muscle mass loss so that we know to perhaps avoid doing them. We want to encourage people to positively add things into their lifestyle, but if we know that something is actively doing us harm, we want to reduce that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And my bias is towards strength training. I think everyone should be doing some form of resistance training. That's where my bias goes. Probably also because, with working with folks here, here at our office, we have a bunch of different strength training equipment, and so I help them get them to progress them so that they can use that equipment to help reinforce and maintain what we've been doing. But anything, any movement, exercise is productive. And actually, that's, I think, like a nice segue is one of the things I thought we could have a fun conversation about is what exactly is exercise? Like, what defines exercise, and how is it that it's an exercise for this person, but it might not be an exercise for that person? I'm just curious, like, do you have a definition in your head of what exercise is? And then I can share you one that my colleagues came up with that I like, and then I'm going to try and like simplify it a little bit more and hone in on one specific thing with that.
Yeah, and I would love to ask the Zoom participants here to kind of give us an idea. What do you guys think in the chat? What is exercise to you? What is actually not just cardio, but physical exercise? And how do you apply it to your everyday life? And if you're watching us on YouTube, do comment there as well. It's lovely to hear how you define that for yourself in different age groups. It also helps manage our own approach to patients. And also maybe if you think about it and would like to guide us as doctors and any physical clinical experts, how can we approach you? Do you think, what are the words that we can use to inspire you to get moving? And what are the words that we use maybe that make you scared or worrisome when we tell you, well, you just go do the exercise and come back in a month and we'll see how you do? I don't think that's very helpful, and certainly would love to hear what are the approaches that you think are helpful to you?
So a couple of answers in the chat about what exercise is. Mary said, daily movement, which includes everything. Great. Donna said that for me, it's anything that isn't sitting. Great. And Donna walks does over 10K in steps, just doing stuff around the house without even, for formal exercise. Janet, anything that uses my major muscle groups. Zainab, daily movement and activities. Yes, housework, Mary.
Zainab just mentioned that she won't even use the word exercise because it
makes their eyes.
Roll their eyes. And Jonathan on our last session was so good at always using movement as a form of inspiration to get out there instead of exercising. Yes, we have to keep moving. And I must say, from the last sessions, I started doing little squats between moving to the kitchen for a coffee to my couch. So that was really useful from the last session. So Charlie, how do you define it?
Yes, so I'm going to read for you a definition that colleagues of mine came up with. And then, like I said, I'm going to hone in and try and hone in on one specific part of this definition, okay? So the definition that they came up with was that exercise is a physical or mental exertion or the removal thereof, most often for the purpose of physical training to improve health and or performance. A stimuli applied or removed over some duration and or created from within the neuromotor control system, resulting in a neuromotor solution response. Here's the key part I want to hone in on. With a purpose of eliciting an intended and specific physiological change state. So it's that last part, the physiological intention, that I want to discuss. And this is the definition that we use here. You guys can disagree with it. It's okay. I'm not saying that, this is how we should be looking at it, but all I'm going to say is this is how I think about it when we define exercise, right? So an intention to make a physiological change. So with that being said, why don't I give you an example, okay? And we can talk about some different examples, right? Flush this out. So I was back home for Christmas break, back in New York, where I'm from. And my father had brain surgery back in November, and he's recovering. He's rehabbing, right? He's got people coming to the house, showing him to do exercises, right? And one of the things that they wanted him to do, if the weather wasn't too cold, right, is to walk outside and walk up the street. And then a measure of his progress each day was they wanted him to walk a mailbox further, right? Go a further mailbox. So, and he's doing this, by the way, with a walker, right? So he's got a walker to kind of help balance him. So I was home with him, and because I was home with him and the care provider, she could look after my mom, I could go with my dad and I could walk with him, okay? So for him, that was exercise, because he's doing it with an intention of trying to improve his endurance. For me, that was not exercise. I would not count that because I'm not looking to do any intention. I'm not trying to make any physiological change. I'm a snowboarder. I like snowboarding. But when I snowboard, it's not exercise to me. It's just fun. I'm just doing it. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm not trying to work on my endurance. I'm not trying to contract my muscles a different way. For me, it's not exercise. The reason why I exercise is so I can snowboard and I can enjoy it. So those are just a little differences. Could that walk with my dad that I did, could I have made that an exercise for me? Sure, if I'm thinking about some intention, right? If I was thinking about, okay, I've noticed when I walk, sometimes you see this with folks when they walk, they lose their ability to swing their arms. So could I have been focusing on that just to do that? I could have. What do we see when people have trouble with walking, right? They lose plantar flexion, right? And they lose their strength there. Could I have been using that and just focusing on, I want to just work on pushing off ball on my foot. I could have made that an exercise. So the reason why we came up with this definition here for folks is so that if we didn't, or our clients can use not exercising as their mode of exercising, but it's not accomplishing for them what we want to accomplish for them. Now, in saying all this too, right, it is not to say that doing an activity of daily living, that there's no physiological carryover, right? When I worked back at Oak Hill, I met this gentleman. I think he was 72 at the time. And he came in to this fitness center and he had just these like very muscular arms. And I said to him, I said, gosh, you look in great shape. You look very strong, and he says, yeah, I've never really formally, done any sort of resistance training. I'm like, really? And I said, well, how, he said, I did construction for years. So, and he wasn't just the guy that was, he owned a construction company, but he was also one of the guys that was lifting and putting all this stuff. So did his arms benefit from that? They did. My mother taught swimming lessons, and there's a picture of her where she's a big reader. And there was a picture, someone spray painted on a wall one time, read books. And so there's a picture of her we have in our house where she's going like this, and she's got just a t-shirt on, and she's pointing to that sign. And I look at that, I'm like, my goodness, my mom's got, muscular arms. She had muscular arms. And she was a swim instructor, but I never knew her to actually say, hey, I'm going to stay after, and I'm going to swim some laps because I'm trying to work on my endurance, or I'm trying to work on, I need to blow off some steam, or I'm the intention of building up some of my leg muscles or improve my endurance. There was none of that. So I don't know. Did any of those examples kind of help kind of give you an idea how I'm thinking about that?
Yes, I love what you just said. The difference between our parents and almost like even I would go a bit further, our grandparents, is that they needed physical movement every day to get things done. So when I see my grandmother and I just, patients from that generation, when you examine them, or I examine my grandma's arms, or I see it, she's so strong. Like there is muscle there. There's just like, wow, you're so small, but so strong. She's like, yeah, that's life, carrying bags, bringing all of us children, from many miles away, bringing something, getting on the bus, picking up the groceries all the time, going back and forth. And there was a serious need for physical movement to get from A to B to survive. But I think what happened right now, especially our generation, is we are rather vegetating. Everything is easily accessible to us. I barely have to vacuum the floor anymore because I have a little vacuum thing that goes around me, right? And there's all these gadgets that make our life so easy that we could be just sitting here doing nothing and we would have access to everything. I mean, everything is ordered through certain online websites. We don't have to go out shopping any longer. We don't have to cook anymore because everything is ready meals. And as Johnson said in the last episode, cut your vegetables. We don't even do that any longer. So I think there is a big shift in the definition of physical movement, what it was in the past and where we are right now, and how disadvantageous it is to our overall health. And somehow we have to redefine and bring that back into our lives. And as you said, with the intention, we need to have now on mindfulness and intention, as Beth has commented here, that it's a actual moment in your life that you have to think about and make that intention part of your daily life, the world just became too easy.
Absolutely. And with, for, walking, I mentioned earlier. So, again, like summertime, in my neighborhood, that we got a really nice path that I can walk around. And usually one of the things I like to do in the summertime to enjoy the weather, right, because we're indoors all the time, is I'll go for a walk. And usually, when I'm going for my walk, I might also be talking to someone on the phone. I might be listening to, a recording of something. Again, it's not exercise for me because I'm not doing it with an intention of trying to make a physiological change. I'm just going for the walk. Could I make it an exercise? Could we make it an exercise? Yes. Could we make walking the dog an exercise? Yes. But if you're just doing it just for the sake of walking the dog, in our world here, by this definition, it's not exercise. And again,
Charlie, can I ask you about muscle mass loss? Because we see this in the exaggerated version in hospitals. When people come in, unfortunately, at any age group, they leave with massive muscle mass from hospitalizing them. We lock them into their beds. It's horrendous. After a week in a hospital, you come out weaker, sometimes sicker, unfortunately. And this is devastating for older patients, but just as bad for young as well. But in a daily life, how much muscle mass do we lose just by sitting at the office desk without supplementing that with actual exercise?
Yeah, I don't know that I honestly don't know I have an actual numbers or anything for you on that.
Erica, actually, you looked it up. Erica,
how
much
okay.
per year? Yeah.
I think, per year it's 4 to 6 pounds. I don't know what that is in kilograms. And it's 1 to 2% of muscle mass. My apologies. 4 to 6 pounds per decade. So every 10 years, not per year.
That is huge if you think about it, and completely explains why our elderly generation need to work out even more than the youngsters who are on Instagram nowadays. We were talking about this before, Charlie, isn't it? That unfortunately exercise has become something that should make you look physically very attractive instead of what you just mentioned, for the purpose to keep you moving so that you can do the things that you love. You need to have that muscle mass so that your skeleton can be carried from A to B, from all the way from birth until the last minute. It is not normal that we are hoisted and bedbound in our older age. This is so important, I think, especially from what we are seeing today through the lockdown. People have been feeling very scared to get out there. But the truth is, it's even safer right now to go out because there are no people on the streets. So I went cycling every single day through the lockdown. It was amazing in the Peak District. There was no one there. It was amazing.
What we came across here in the States was when, everything was shut down. I can't tell you, I kept coming across these articles that people were becoming more and more sedentary. And it was like, wait a minute. You want your immune system to be healthy. If you do get this thing, you can fight it off.
Absolutely. And you need to strengthen your immune system with physical activity every day. And I just want to repeat this intention. I really like that. Just when Johnson mentioned about on the last chat about doing something in between the housework, now bringing your thought about the intention and mindfulness, it pieces together a day where you wake up and really think about what you're doing. So whoever is with us here on Zoom and on YouTube, do let us know, what are you going to do differently from tomorrow morning? How are you going to add intention into your physical movement? How can you do the little tweaks based on what we have been speaking about today?
I think one of the things, going back to those stereotypes and with the, unfortunately, the older generation, I feel like they fell into those those traps or those stereotypes, right? And that's why they don't exercise. And in some cases too, there's been folks I've worked with that are in the elderly population, if you will, and I'm telling them, hey, we're making some great progress. To help maintain that, exercise. You don't have to come here and spend your money with me. Let's get you set up on something. But they fight back. They kind of push back, right? Because they don't like it. I think we got to get over this whole what I want for Christmas attitude when it comes to exercise. In some cases, some exercises that might be important for you, they might not be the most fun thing to do, but if they help maintain or improve the quality of your life, do them.
And so we love bringing practical thoughts into our sessions, especially at the end. And I would love to ask you, what would you unofficially advise our listeners? How could they get a little bit more physical movement into their daily life at any age? How would you approach them?
I guess via a message like this, I would just say, if you're not already involved in some sort of exercise process, start, like look into it, look into something. I would say less is more. Start simple. If you haven't been actively doing anything, start with something simple. Maybe it's with just starting with a walk around the neighborhood. If you're buying with what we're trying to sell you on resistance training, take it up and start with something light. If you feel like you're completely lost, you don't know where to start, seek out a professional. Hire a trainer. There's great trainers that are out there. And I would just say, don't give up too. If you have some troubles, if you run into obstacles, keep going. There are some really good trainers out there that can help you and progress you and meet you wherever you're at, so that you can do some sort of exercise. And again, like we were saying earlier, it doesn't have to be like the images that we see on Instagram or TV or movies or anything like that. It can just be real simple.
And just practically from a strength training point of view, we said earlier, it's more than just going to the gym, lifting heavy weights. What other things can people do at home to improve their muscle strength?
Yeah, if they have
few examples.
Yeah, I guess if you have some dumbbells, there are tons of different exercises you can do with light dumbbells. I like ankle weights. There's resistance.
And for people who don't have dumbbells, you can use cans of beans or something.
You can. Now I'm gonna say, yeah, that might be a good place to start. But ultimately, I want to see if we could get them lifting. Because in all honesty, and with some of them, yeah, cans of beans. Once their body adapts to that, it's like, let's give them just something a little heavier. But yes, cans of beans could be, yes. Resistance bands, a lot of things you can do that. There's some great, I think, as far as home gyms, right? If you're concerned about, going into places because of COVID and things of that nature, there's some great, Bowflex, I think it's a decent piece of equipment. The Total Gym here in the United States, I don't know in UK, but in the US, they're advertising that thing like crazy. But it's a decent piece of equipment, right? You can do a variety of different exercises with.
According to Public Health England as well, even, carrying heavy shopping out, with your weekly shop, that counts as, strength training as well.
As this is funny. My neighbor was trying to help me on an occasional basis to carry my bags up onto the 6th floor, which I do on a regular basis. And I very politely said, sorry, please don't take away my daily exercise. And he was a little bit shocked at first. And I said, it's very gentlemanlike, thank you. But it really is a disservice to us ladies if you do that. It's important that we encourage everybody to do it safely, but on a regular basis. And to remember that unfortunately nowadays, everything is served to us. No matter where we are coming from, what socioeconomic background, movement has been reduced from our lives. And that's why it's so important to put intention into our movement.
Yes. I was going to say yes. So if you're doing it, right, that example, if you're doing it with the intention of, wait a minute, I'm going to do this, then it's exercise. If you don't consider it exercise.
The grandma, oh, sorry, I thought it was on mute. So I wanted to give a shout out to Grandma Moves on Instagram, because we have spoken about Instagram here and how it can be very disempowering to see very perfect bodies out there. And Grandma Moves is an incredible example where she's showing at an older age that she can move every day and make movement and strength training part of her daily life. So she's a great inspiration. Just wanted to give her a shout out. So if you want to follow her, it's grandma/moves on Instagram. She's great. Well, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, the hour has already come to an end. We could talk to you all day long, Charlie. You're such a positive energy and inspiration. We were talking before that as soon as you started talking to us, I just wanted to stand up actually and go moving and get my dumbbells on. But well, rather do the afternoon tea here. We would love to know, how can our listeners connect with you on social media, and if they would like to take on physical personal training, how can they do that?
Yes. So yeah, if you're in this area, go to physiciansfitness.com and that should be able to guide you as far as contacting us directly if you're in or around the Columbus area. I would also, to connect with me, LinkedIn is probably a great social media place. Just send me a request on there, maybe a note. Usually I usually accept folks if we have mutual connections. So if we don't, maybe just say, hey, I listen to you on Tea with the Docs, and just send me a note and I'll add you. Yeah, and then as far as exploring other trainers in your area, I would just do your homework. Seek folks out if you need some guidance. I think anyone that's always just trying to consistently learn would be someone that I would entertain working with, because there's so much to know about this stuff. I got to constantly review it, study it. So if you're looking for someone, that would be one of the things I would look for.
If you have watched us here on YouTube, and please comment, what are you going to do differently going forward in your intention when you are thinking about movement and adding a bit more strength training into your day? You can continue this conversation completely free of charge on our website by becoming a member on afternoonteawithdocs.com. It's a free membership, and we discuss the events that have been on the show. So do check us out there, and you can also join us on social, as we mentioned, on Instagram, as well as LinkedIn and Facebook, where all of these events are live streamed, so you can share away the knowledge of lifestyle medicine so everybody can live a long and fulfilling life. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will put all the links below so you can share it. And if you want to and you enjoy this event, do join us for next Sunday, when we will continue the conversation on physical activity and how you can add that to your daily lives. Now, for those who have joined us on Zoom, we will continue this session in an informal off a recorded session on Zoom where we can discuss further. So for everybody who has joined us on YouTube, see you later. Thank you for joining us.